Well, hey, good afternoon. Welcome to another edition of Show Up Central Oregon. And today we're talking about remote workforce. And I am privileged to be joined right now by Katie Anderson. Katie is, what would you say you are, Katie? Can you tell me kind of who you are and what you do?
Sure. Yeah. I'm one of the owners of Aperion Management Group here in Central Oregon, and we manage homeowners associations for a living, which is kind of interesting right now. We've taken our workforce virtual, but we're still essential workers because we're providing, sort of vital services to our communities. Sort of think of it as kind of functioning as mini governments, tiny cities. So it's been an interesting couple of weeks.
I bet it has. And I can only imagine. Have you had much experience with sort of having a remote workforce in the past?
Our industry always had the ability to do it, but we did not do it on a grand scale as a company by any means. We had staff that would work for home. Part of our culture is to certainly make sure that we are creating flexible environments for our staff, but we did not anywhere near, where we're functioning today, have a team that was this dispersed. A lot of our culture centered around the energy that we're able to feed off of each other. We have kind of tough jobs, so laughing, joking in the office was the counter to those tough stuff.
Mm.
So, yeah, we shut our office to only a few vital workers on February or on March 13th, Friday the 13th. Seems like a joke. And took about 13 staff members completely virtual and, sort of set up technology and made sure all computers were working and did all of that stuff in the span of an 8-hour day in preparation that following Monday would start everyone working from home. So yeah, it's been interesting. We certainly, I think, are lucky that we have the ability for our staff to remain employed in what they're doing and
Hmm.
be able to execute what we can for our clients, but learning that process and taking all of the information in, plus supporting our workforce and trying to figure out how we maintain our culture through it all has been a monumental task in the last couple of weeks.
Hmm. What would you say? I think obviously most businesses are beginning to figure it out, but I mean, would you have some tips and tricks? I mean, what are the biggest things that you've learned? Your takeaways, I guess, from this transition.
And this could just be me as a leader. I think that sometimes when you're running companies, whether it's a small or a large company, that it's really easy to believe that you have to have all the answers. And for me, I think I've done a lot of growth as a leader in general, as a human being in the last year, and learning to be more honest and vulnerable about where I am in my space. And I think this is a really tough situation. And I guess the one tip or recommendation that I would give to folks that are leading companies is to be honest with your staff. They don't necessarily need to know all of the gory details, but they do need to see that honest side of us as leaders, that we might not have all the answers to this, but we're doing our best to work our way through it. And that some of the decisions that we make might have to be changed tomorrow because we're all getting new information. But I think giving this perspective that we have all of these answers as we're all finding our way through this is doing a disservice to the people around us who need to see us be human beings too.
Yeah, I think that's a. I know Afton Kofelt. I don't. Do you know Afton Kofelt?
Yeah.
Okay, so Afton and I were having a real conversation about fear yesterday, and I think that's important as leaders to lean into that because we don't have all the answers right now, and I think sometimes if we're not careful, we don't, I guess, necessarily show to the people that need to know that hey, we would love some input, and I think that's also important. And I mean, was there definite some help along the way from some of your employees? You're like, yeah, what if we did it this way?
Yeah, our team has been fantastic. Our sort of infrastructure is mostly Microsoft based, and so we've been utilizing Microsoft Teams definitely a lot more than we were before. We were always paying for the product, but never used it to the extent we've now used it in the last 3 weeks. And so we have, varying group chats between our team members that are on there. And it's been amazing to see some of their suggestions too on, ways that we can re-engage and start giving back to the community. Also things that are working, not working, having other team members sort of step in and help do some training and help fellow staff members find their way through and navigate this situation. As a leader of the company, and I know that my other two business partners feel the same, it's been really heartwarming to see that the culture that we created is functioning, even with everybody in their own space, not in the office. That kind, helpful spirit, to have fun, is still translating in the work that we're doing.
So I'm going to put you on the spot. As you were answering that question, you paused. Were you getting choked up, or were you just trying to figure out your words? Because it felt
Yeah,
almost like there's a realization of how important and effective our teams can be when we empower them. Basically,
yeah. Thanks for calling me out, Matt. Yeah, this it's definitely a little bit emotional to see how everybody has rallied our community. I'm one of those that got to grow up here, so watching the Central Oregon community, how we're navigating this, has been you know deeply inspiring. How people have kind of rallied. So yeah, it is emotional to see these individuals that we know so well in that setting work their way through such a tough situation.
has there been? I mean, obviously, then it strikes me as sort of that incredible growing experience that as a team leader, as a leader, we all can allow our employees to just grow in just such amazing ways. And yet I think the traditional, well, not traditional, but the past models of the, okay, we're going to lead by power versus lead by example and just allow them to work. I think in this modern age, I mean, the reality is that it is one of those things today that we are allowing them to lean into a situation, lean into work that is nowhere near what it used to be. So
Yeah.
these workflows are developing every day, and if,
Yeah.
if we don't allow them to help us with those workflows, I think we're going to be sunk more than anything else. It's yeah.
Yeah, I think anybody who's running a company in any industry right now is having to pivot in some way. Um, and some of those are in harder ways than others, but I heard it described the other day, and it very much resonated with me, that somebody compared this to the sort of the aftershocks that we experienced after 9/11. Our community, our company, our nation isn't. We're not going to go back to business as normal after this is all done. We will be changed fundamentally in ways that maybe even today that we don't quite know. And as leaders, I think that's part of our job, right? We have to be open minded enough to see down that road and know what's coming and pick those paths that might be best for our company, our community, and and be okay with that change, because we can't stop it. Some of this is happening right now, and it's going to create some good. Some may change our lives in harder ways. It's hard to know that right now, but I think that, to me, that resonated, to put it into a bucket or a box that I understood. I remember living through that time period and the aftermath and what our society went through and what I went through. And so that kind of put it into a little bit of perspective that I think I could wrap my head around. Because right now there's so much unknown. We wake up every day to changes, new sets of facts and circumstances and laws and executive orders and so many things that we're filtering through. So there are pieces of it that I think, for our team members, for ourselves, to try and figure out what that anchor is to look forward to, but also just to be open-minded enough to change our perspective and pivot and make sure that we are being authentic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'm yeah, for sure, absolutely. It reminds me of these the bigger goal, I guess, oftentimes is productivity, and I guess if you could talk about how, I guess right now when you have a remote workforce, how do you measure quote unquote productivity? I mean, what does that look like? And what sort of, I guess, reality check is it like, hey, this is the work that we have to do versus the work that needs to be done, sort of thing.
Yeah, that's really tough in our world too, because some of what we do is not fun. Some of what my staff does is compliance. They're driving around a community and making sure that those that live in that community are abiding by the rules that they signed up for. And some of that work feels out of place right now. To tell somebody you need to take care of your yard, or you have 6 cars parked in front of your home because you have that many people sheltering in place, doesn't seem like the best use of our resources. And so working with our clients to try and figure out a happy medium to make sure that we're still protecting the value of communities, but that we are really honoring what's going on in our world right now. And so I think part of that productivity is making sure that the work that we're focusing on is the right work for our clients. And another big piece of what we do is collections work, making sure that those assessments are coming in, and those assessments cover vital services, keeping insurance paid and lights turned on and water flowing and contractors employed in our community. And so if that work stops, it has a pretty big ripple effect to other individuals that right now we're able to keep employed. And so the measure of our productivity for me as a leader is making sure that we're focusing on the right tasks. It's not so much checking up on my staff or following what they're doing, but making sure we're meeting the needs of our clients.
Can you speak into a little bit about, if you were to give, I guess, you talked about your own personal experience, but, what would, out of that personal experience, what would that one or two things you would say to somebody to measure productivity? And furthermore, I mean, are you setting an expectation of that productivity, I guess, is the question going into that?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that our staff had, we were really fortunate while we weren't functioning as a remote workforce. I think our team had a pretty clear understanding of what it meant to get their jobs done before we went into this, and we had some pretty clear guidelines on certain reports or communication that needs to go to our clients on a regular basis so that they're in the loop on the work that we are doing. So I think we were really fortunate that that was in place before this situation occurred. And so I think measuring that productivity is making sure that your team knows what's expected of them. What is it that has to get done in order for that job to be sort of checked off and completed? And we were fortunate that that was in place. And so I think the thing for us was to then make sure that they had the tools to do that work remotely. Did they know how to execute that work? Did they have the systems and the resources and everything that they needed to make sure that that happened? And I think that's really important to your team. So the first and foremost, I would say they need to understand what it means to get the job done. And second, are you giving them the tools that they need to do it? And I think lastly, you kind of got to get out of their way and let them get it done. And for me as a leader, what starts, sort of raising concern for me, or would be sort of a red flag, is am I getting communication that's coming up to my level from my team's clients or homeowners or boards? If it's reaching me, then something broke down. But if I'm not being overwhelmed with that level of communication, to some extent, I have to trust that my team is getting the work completed.
Yeah, which is I think that's a good point, Katie, on the issue of as leaders, we need to, again, it's the teaching the leaders or teaching our other people to lead. It's like you're that last stop. You don't need to be the first stop.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm the last.
exactly. I mean,
if it's gotten to me, something's gone off the rails.
yeah, yeah. And now the reality is that in this day and age, could you imagine dealing with all the communication coming at you remotely if you had to be the first stop?
Oh man, no. Yeah, we are so fortunate to have the team of people. And we're really fortunate that, our vital employees have been able to still work in the office. So, our receptionist is still going in and answering the phones, and our clients. I mean, that's a funny thing. Had we not ever told our clients that we were working from home, other than seeing, a different room in the back of a video call, many of them probably wouldn't have even known the difference. They'd never know.
Well, that's a testament to what you have done. And it's funny. Somebody said that I was about to say pivot, and somebody said the other day, we're getting tired of using the word pivot. I mean, it's like,
Yeah. Give me a new word. Give me a new word. I'm happy to use a new word.
because the reality is, yeah, we're going to be saying that for another month and a half. I think it's now the new norm, so it's not really a pivot at this point in time.
It's just, maybe it's just, tipping our world upside down and shaking out the contents on a daily basis. It kind of feels like every morning we wake up is like, okay, what is vital to get through today? And, we're all dealing with the same challenges. Some of my employees have kids at home. Some of them do not. I have 3 children at home. So learning how to get my work done along with having 3 children at home is definitely a challenge for me. So I know it's a challenge for my staff. And I think we also have to have a little bit of grace with each other right now, too, because what was productive to me a month ago is not really what I can expect even from myself today.
Yeah. Yeah. And can you actually, let me ask, because, I'm a single guy living in a house, so without any kids or dogs or animals in general. So, what things have you done, short of tying children to beds, which we don't want to do.
No.
What have you done, to encourage the kids to sort of, hey, by the way, when this door is closed, or, can you give some tips on, what that looks like, from an efficient leader also, to say, hey, this is just some, structure, I guess, more than anything else?
I don't know if it's efficient. It's just pure bribery. Like right before this call, I was like, I have a call. I need you to be quiet for an hour. And if you're quiet for an hour, I'll get the Nerf guns out at the end of the call. So it's just right now it's utter bribery.
I was thinking, okay, we'll DoorDash some Dairy Queen or, something like that, basically.
No, man, I think we're all doing the best that we can. Man, yeah, as parents, as human beings, man, check your judgment at the door right now, because we are all doing the absolute best that we can. And bless, again, I think part of being well connected in the community, I'm really involved with the chamber. I'm very involved in various community aspects. And so I think it gives me a really good perspective, just as a human being living in this community, what all of those other individuals are going through too,
Mm-hmm.
the school board and our medical staff and all of these varying industries that are having to figure this stuff out overnight. So, we've been trying to find resources to keep our kids busy over the last couple of weeks, waiting the new resources from the school district, and we'll figure out what that distance learning looks like, and just trying to be patient with ourselves and our staff, and what is our whole world, I think, as individuals has changed in the last 3 weeks in really radical ways.
Yeah, I was in your office shortly. I think it was just about, well, it would have been about a month and a half ago, basically. So I was actually in your office, as opposed to right now, where This is Katie. You can't see Katie because I realized I turned my video off back to you. But I'm now basically touching the screen that you're on right now. And so hello
Yeah.
Katie. Hello.
Hello.
We're practicing our social distancing and but I mean it's such a brave new world and I applaud leaders like you for going after it and trying to make sure that people are getting what they need and it's definitely obviously a brave new world. So is there anything that you would add just as far as from a management or a leadership capability or capacity that you wanted to say to the audience about remote workforce at this point in time?
Yeah, I think we're finding fun new ways to engage with people. Like we're an office that likes to do silly pranks, and April Fools today looked a little different for us than it has in years past. And so they're sending digital memes and silliness that's going on. And so I think we have to find a way to make sure that whatever your culture looks like, that you are making sure that that is a conscious effort right now, whether it's through group chats or Zoom or emails or videos to your team. It has to be a part of what you're making sure is happening in a daily basis, because with everything coming at us, it's really easy for that to be something that maybe makes it to the bottom of the list, and it should kind of be the first thing on your agenda every day to make sure that whatever culture pieces are important to you, that you're finding a way to reinforce that on a daily basis.
And this actually goes to an interesting question. How are you reinforcing? So I know for you, you would do different things, and not necessarily meals, but you would do things for the staff. So those little tiny gifts, those little tiny things. How are
Yeah.
you? I mean, this seems like it's more difficult to do. But I mean, have you done any of those things and do you have any tips from that standpoint?
So we're working on something right now. So I won't actually answer that because I don't want to give it away to a few of our team members that we are working on something today. But yeah, I think that's been a lot of conversation with our sort of senior team about those pieces, making sure that our staff feels taken care of through all of this. I think the last 2 weeks, the piece of it that has changed is not so much, the meals and some of those just more caretaking things that our company frequently does. Um, some of what's happened over the last 2 weeks is just letting them know that we're doing everything as leaders to ensure that they're still going to have jobs,
Mm-hmm.
that they're still going to be employed, and that their basic needs are going to be met. And I do feel like we're through a little bit of that storm. There were definitely some times as a leader over the last 2 weeks that have been scary and gut wrenching and hard, for us to just take a look at our company and say, okay, what are the areas that are going to be impacted, and how do we weather this? And those are always tough conversations. And so I think that the focus has been over the last couple of weeks has been that is keeping them employed. And now we get the opportunity to shift and say, okay, what does it look like now? How do we take those steps forward? So we're working on some fun ideas, and that'll continue to evolve. I'll keep you in the loop as we come up with creative solutions on how we meet those needs with people all over the county. But that has been definitely a big shift over the last couple of weeks.
Well, when you're offering, complimentary DoorDash to your employees, you can put me on that list. That's I'll be on that list. You can send me. Oh, sorry.
I'll keep you in the loop.
Hey, Katie, thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And your busy day, and thanks for giving some tips on what we can do as business owners to keep that sort of going for our employees. And appreciate you
Yeah.
on the front line and trying to make sure that those people are employed. So.
Yeah.
You have a wonderful
Thank
wonderful
you.
evening. You can feel free to log off, and I'll do a sign off. But I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Thanks,
All
Matt.
right, thanks, Katie. All right,
Bye.
bye. So that was Katie, and something just happened because that should have done something different. Oh, that's right. There we go. So you guys got to see behind the scenes there for a second. Hit the wrong button. So Katie Anderson, and I appreciate all of you joining me today. I know that we haven't done a lot of programming per se on the channel. However, we've been a part of several pieces today. Did the City Club of Central Oregon. Tomorrow we are going to be helping out with the Chambers webinar. All of this is great content, and I will try to post links in our YouTube channel just so that people know. Did a restream earlier today of just some great, just therapeutic sort of talk and some thoughts. Yeah, I appreciate you joining me today. It's been just such a pleasure and a delight to bring you guys programming. This definitely has changed for me, and yeah, it's
I'm having trouble hearing you.
Siri just decided to respond. That was fun. Lighten the moment. Yeah. Anyways, you guys have a good evening, and again, I would encourage you to, if anybody's still watching, go to your neighbors, obviously practice social distancing, but go knock on their door, put notes up in your windows, big giant notes saying, love you all or whatever. So people passing by can see. Hearts on Doors, obviously a new Facebook group that started, I think middle of last week, just promoting, putting hearts. There's also a new one that I just saw, something about bears. Obviously they're, there's all sorts of things going on. And yes, we are supposed to stay home. So I encourage everyone to stay home, but make sure that you're reaching out to those around you. Family members, if you haven't called a family member in a while, pick up the phone, call them. Even if it's a hard conversation, just hearing their voice can be beneficial. So again, everyone, show up for Central Oregon. Show up, Central Oregon. And you guys have a great evening.